All right, I'm going to go over how we can find exponential functions given a table of values. So let me just take a second to review what the basic form of an exponential function is. And let me fix this b. I don't know what's going on here. All right, so what makes an exponential function different from like linear equations that you are probably doing up to now are that, or is that the variable is an exponent, it's a power. So what you have here is that y is equal to a times b to the x power. So b is your base. B is your base. So it's pretty easy to remember since b starts with b, or base starts with b. So let me put that in red. Let me put this in red. Let me drop my cap. And then a is we say the initial value, or you can think of it as the starting value, beginning value. The initial value, or the value in this case when x equals 0. So when x equals 0, that means that a is gonna, or the graph of this is gonna go through the point 0 comma a. Like if you have, let me see if I can just, this is a little sketch just for visual purposes. This means that the y-intercept is essentially a, 0 a. Now it could go up, it could like go down, or it could curve up, curve down, but we'll get into that later when we start graphing. So let's look at what we got here. So we are given x values matched up with 3 y values, and so we want to come up with this form. We want to come up with a form y is equal to a, and I like to put the b in parentheses to emphasize that it's being raised to the x power, to b to the x power. So we want to find a and b. So a is pretty simple in this table because we already have the y value for when x equals 0. And that means that the a value is going to be 1.2. Because when x is 0, y is 1.2. So a is 1.2. So we can go ahead and write this as y equals 1.2 times b to the x power. And if you're wondering like how this works, how you can show this, you just have to plug 0 in for x. See, if you plug 0 in for x, so for example, arrowing down, this is saying that it goes through the point 0, 1.2, meaning that if you substitute 1.2 for y and 0 for x, so it'll be like this, a times b to the 0. Remember that any term to the 0 power is 1, so this is just a times 1. So what you have is just 1.2 is equal to a. So there you go. There's your a value, or your initial value. Now we need to find the value for b, and b is the value you're multiplying by each time. Like, what value do you multiply 1.2 by to get 3.96? That's your b value. You keep on going, you're going to multiply 3.96 by your b value to get the 13.068. So we want to find that value. And the simple way to do it in this case is just to go backwards and divide, because going and undoing multiplication is just dividing. So we can just find b by simply taking 3.96 dividing it by 1.2, or you can take 13.0608 and divide it by 3.96. In either case, you should get 3.3. So your b is 3.3. And then you can, well, you can just write our equation as y equals 1.2 times 3.3 to the x power. So this will be our equation. And then just verify, make sure that it works out. So if you keep on if you multiply 13.068 by 3.3, we should get 13.068 by 3.3. We'll get 43.1244. I'm going to multiply this again by 3.33, or 3.3, and I'll get one that glares in a way. You'll get 142.31052. Well, let's look at the one that's not so simple. So let's look at this next problem. So I'm going to erase this. And okay, so in this next one, well, let me erase that first. The next one we have we're given 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're given the x value, or we're given the y value when x is 0, and we're given the y value when x is 2. Or yeah, the y value when x is 2. So we're just given this information. Okay, so let's see where we go from here. Okay, so we're given that y is 5 when x is 0. So then we're given the a value already. So then from that we can have that a is 5, and we can write then that y equals 5 times b to the x power. So we still have to find the base. Now, the thing that makes this a little more advanced is that we're skipping a term. Like we're going from 0 to 1 to 2, but we're not given the y value when you're not given a y value when you go from the directly to the next term. So remember that in either case, if you're going to go to any to the next y value, you're multiplying by b, right? And then you're multiplying by b here as well. So to get from the first term, or from this term to this term, you're basically multiplying by b squared. And then you can just find the square root of that, but you can that's one way. If you can mentally, like, or if you can do that in your head, then it's don't feel like you have to do stuff by hand if you can do it in your head. But what this means is that we do this like using an equation, we can have that. Let's say when y is 180, we know that x is 2. The a is still 5 because we're using this value right here. So then we can just solve for b by dividing both sides by 5. By 5, and we get 36 equals b squared. Then from here, we can just take the square root of each of them, and we'll get that b is 6. And then if we know b is 6, then we got enough for our equation, and we can write that y equals 5 times 6 to the x power. And then we can just plug it in. 5 times 6 would be 30. 30 times 6 is going to be 80, so it works out. And then we just go from there. So 180 times 6, 1080. And then 1080 times 6 would be 6480. All right, so there you go. I hope that helps. Good luck.